by Ashley Hayek. She served on Trump's 2020 presidential campaign as National Coalitions Director and is now president of a pretty conservative or perhaps Trump-friendly group, America First Works. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on The Beat. I just went through the facts. They're pretty inarguable. Inflation and price is still a concern. Why do you think Donald Trump hasn't started to bring them down and isn't prioritizing this compared to at least a lot of the other issues we've seen in?
Well, one convenient fact that was kind of left out was that the report that showed the inflation going up was actually through the end of Biden's term. Through January, mid-January, has not reflected any changes so far. Now, the damage that the Biden administration has done.
I'll let you finish, but yeah, both. I said, I'll let you finish, but yeah, monthly report. So partly Biden in charge part of that month, partly Trump in charge part of that month.
Well, 3 weeks he's been in office, and Biden left behind a lot of damage that cannot quickly be undone. That's why Republicans, a couple years ago were raising the alarm on the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which actually completely increased inflation. At America First Works, we knocked on a lot of doors, and we actually visited 5.7 million Americans. And what we learned was the economy was the number one issue. And when orange juice went from $4 to $8 under the Biden administration, because of the excessive spending that President Trump is now cutting, that is what ultimately won the election. Now, here's the other issue right now. In your last segment, you were talking about, the conflict of interest and Elon Musk. And the problem is the victim of the excessive spending, the waste, fraud, and abuse that President Trump has prioritized cutting is, quite frankly, the victim is the American people. And y'all keep talking about Elon, and you're not recognizing the fact that the previous administration was spending billions of dollars on ridiculous things, and that's what President Trump is trying to address.
Well, look, I want to have a conversation with you. You say y'all keep talking about Elon. Elon keeps talking about Elon. Trump keeps talking about Elon. The president has given him incredible authorities, and he's in the Oval Office holding a press conference. So, yes, people are going to cover and respond to what's coming out of the Oval Office. I will show you where the public is at on lowering prices. When you ask people if this feels like they're hearing that it's a priority, you got most people saying not enough. Trump's focused there. Only a third, which means many of his voters even saying it's the right amount. So how do you deal with the reality that the public is not feeling that the big issue that you said was key last year is being addressed, and perhaps at the expense of other sort of vendettas or side issues?
I think it's 100% being addressed. And I think the report shows all the more need for the president and conservatives to fulfill the mandate that they were given in November to reduce Biden's spending levels. I think it's really interesting to see the left and people like Chuck Schumer and many others talking about inflation now, kind of. Americans could have used that urgency a long time ago, but they didn't want to do that. They wanted to spend taxpayer dollars on ridiculous DEI, Iraq, Sesame Street, and other silly things. What they seem to not understand is that this report just covers all the way through into Biden's term.
Let's be clear. Is your contention that programs that advance diversity are what caused inflation in the United States? I mean, I haven't heard that from anyone.
I think the waste, fraud, and abuse that is being exposed, the excessive billions of dollars that are being spent on nonsense programs, that's what they're starting to cut, and they're identifying the fraud and just the complete, the advantage that's been taken of the taxpayers, And so at this point, I think that Democrats, the only solutions that the left ever offered were price controls.
I want to have a back and forth. But so not DEI. I mean, Musk is trying to cut, and sometimes the courts are going to have a say on whether he's exceeding even his authority as a special government employee who hasn't been elected to anything, hasn't been named to run any agency. If Trump thinks he's so good at cutting Pentagon dollars, he could put him in charge of the Pentagon. Instead, they're in this quasi role. I also wanted to get you, while we've been starting on inflation, on this potential trade war. I know that you've said, and others, that Trump knows business, knows how to negotiate. That's part of it. But a lot of people, including Republicans, are concerned that the way he's approaching tariffs could just hurt Americans, whether he's good at negotiating or not. Take a listen.
It will drive the cost of everything up. In other words, it'll be paid for by American consumers. I mean, why would you want to get in a fight with your allies over this?
Tariffs are a tax. When you tax something, you get less of it. So we'll probably get fewer imports, but then with retaliation, fewer exports.
But tariffs as an economic policy are a disaster for the consumer and mean higher prices. Even if the tariffs are only on China, the average price that the consumer will pay is about $1,000 more.
Who's right? Those Republican leaders, many of them longtime Republican conservatives, concerned about their constituents, or Donald Trump?
We saw in the first term the impact of the tariffs. It actually helped increase wages of the American people, brought jobs back. We already saw that with Steve Madden Shoe Company, they're coming back, doing more manufacturing in the United States. Other corporations are looking at building manufacturing firms. The goal is really to help the American worker. And we've heard already from presidents of the Steel Association and the Aluminum Association talking about how this will positively impact American workers and their families. And ultimately, we saw the success of it in his first term, and I think we'll see that again this time.
All right. I wanted to get you on that. Before I lose you, you mentioned the issues in last year's election. You've worked, for the Trump campaign previously. A lot of folks around Trump say immigration has been a winning issue for him. We've seen surveys. I've reported on it. The public concerned about runaway immigration. But I did want to ask you, as someone in this orbit, has the mass deportation and tougher immigration policy begun yet?
I think he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do on the campaign this past cycle. I think the deportations are key in making sure that they are targeting the worst criminals first. It's about making our communities safe once again. It's about stopping human trafficking at the border. It's about securing the border and making sure the drug cartels are not running the border and fentanyl is not flowing into our communities. That's what's critical. And I mean, we just saw Department of Justice Pam Bondi come out today saying no more sanctuary cities. We need to protect the American people. Yep. And that's exactly what this administration is doing.
And again, I want to talk policy here. And we had Stephen Miller on, as you may know, last year before the election. When you say prioritization of the worst, does that mean fewer overall deportations? Because one interesting thing, and we're just following the numbers with you here, is if you look at the comparison, I'll put this on the screen, Trump versus Biden, right now, it's actually a lower rate of deportations. The Trump administration is doing them, but they're not even reaching the level of previous administrations. As you know, he ran against Biden and partly seemed to imply that he was going to do something bolder or of a higher number. It's not for me to say what the perfect number is, but is your view as someone in this orbit that right now the lower number is okay because, as you say, it reflects prioritization of certain cases?
I think I would want to look a little bit more closely into that, but I think the president prioritizing this issue is very, very important. I think we've seen a lot of success, but when you have cases like today, I don't know if you've heard, but Tom Homan went to do a raid in Colorado, and the apartment complex that he went to was given a heads up. There was a violent gang there, and they had already left because somebody leaked to them. That's a problem, which means there's people that are actively working against the president. So we have to make sure that the Trump administration is able to do their job to the fullest extent. Things like that are preventing them from doing that. And I'm completely confident in the president's ability to get the job done.